Deep in the basement of the Foundation, within the archives, a gateway that has remained closed for nearly over 90 years starts acting up and glowing. Two scientists observing it then say, "Do you think it's true? The legend of the mummy and stuff?" "I don't know," says the other scientist, until a man in a grey three-piece suit with long shoulder-length hair, a dark moustache and small triangular chin beard appears, saying, "It appears to be active again as the event of the planets aligning is getting close." The two scientists then go, "Mr. Gray, please, call me Dorian. And I fear that whoever's about to come out of there, I just hope it's on our side. I just hope it's him. Imhotep." Egypt, 1290 BC. Thebes, city of the living, home of priest Imhotep and advisor to the pharaoh. The pharaoh lived and reigned peacefully among Egypt. Imhotep, although he was a loyal friend and advisor to the pharaoh, he also shared a romantic relationship with the pharaoh's daughter, Anck-Su-Namun. One night, the pharaoh summoned Imhotep to his quarters, saying to him that he will not be around forever, and my son Akiten, although he is the eldest of my children, he is not ready nor fit to be king, and I do not wish to hand him my crown. So, when I am summoned by the gods, I want you to be my successor, Imhotep," said the pharaoh. "Will you accept this great honor that I am offering you?" Imhotep then said, "Your Majesty, this is a great honor, but I don't know if I should accept." "Of course," said the pharaoh, "you may have time to think of this, but I also know that you have a relationship with my daughter, Anck-Su-Namun. Just think of it. Together, you will be both a great king and queen of the world that I have built. My son Akiten, he can never be king unless he learns to be a good king. Over his years he has lived in privilege and wealth, and because I have given him all he desires, he will not respect his reign or authority properly. I have yet to make this public, but do decide quickly, Imhotep." Of course, unknowing that his son, Prince Akiten, overheard the whole thing, confronting his father, begging him to reconsider. His father telling him he's made his decision and vows to stick to it, and that he is not fit to be king. Then Akiten tells his father what he wants to hear and hugs him. Out of rage, he has a dagger that he drives into his father's back. Then, the next morning, the pharaoh is found dead, and the weapon had been planted in Imhotep's room. Prince Akiten, assuming the throne of king, then says, "You killed my father. You will die for this." Imhotep, trying to persuade him, trying to tell him that it wasn't him who did it. Akiten then wishes to speak with him in private, telling him he knew of the conversation that him and his father had and could not allow it to be. Imhotep, wondering why he would kill his father, he then said, "The throne is mine. I am the king of Egypt, and I sentence you to death, but under one condition." "What is that?" said Imhotep. "Make me immortal." Imhotep, knowing that this would be going against everything of the gods, but knowing that he can summon magic and ancient powers from the gods that be, Imhotep tried to tell him that it was a bad idea. He then said that if he does not do as he asks, then he will also have his sister killed and him, Imhotep, framed for the murder. Imhotep reluctantly accepted this. He then asked that he be taken to Hamunaptra, city of the dead, to perform the ritual, wondering why he must go there. It would be to perform the ritual. The dead are already living souls. You wish to be that, you must feel the power of death before. Akiten, not convinced, he then has his sister Anuxaramun brought in. Akiten then stabs her, saying that he can save her if he does what he asks. He gives Imhotep some of his blood, and then they head out to Hamunaptra, where the ritual is performed. Imhotep performs the ritual, restoring Anuxaramun. Akiten, amazed by this, then interferes with the ritual before it can be completed. Imhotep begs him to let him resume, but does not do so. At first he wishes to be immortal. Imhotep then performs the ritual, bonding his blood with the prince's, and performing an incantation from the book of the gods. After doing this, Akiten then goes back on his word, having Imhotep and his other priests mummified alive, and would be given a worse death of all. Imhotep was mummified alive and then buried. Along the way, Imhotep had his tongue removed and his eyes gouged out before being wrapped in bandages and then placed in a tomb. After locking him in a tomb and leaving him to be buried in Hamunaptra, Akiten then began his reign, but upon his reign, he then began to feel not right. His tongue then came out from his mouth, his eyes also melting away. Then, wrapping himself around, he then found that the ritual Imhotep performed with the blood bondage linked them together. Imhotep also pulled out an insurance policy that if he be awakened again, then he will stop Akiten. With his dying words, Akiten then placed a curse, saying that whoever awakens him, he will rise once more to summon plagues. And Imhotep would also be there waiting. Then giving in, he dies and is then mummified and placed into a tomb. There he would sleep along with the book of the gods hidden away. Imhotep knew that one day, no matter how many lifetimes it takes, he knows that he will rise again, as he was prophesied, that when the planets align once more, Akiten will have his revenge. $3,000 later, Hamunaptra, 1932. An archaeology digging team is on the site, digging underneath, around the tombs. They then venture in. 3 archaeologists, a woman named Helen Grossner, and 2 other archaeologists, brothers, Frank and Joseph Wempel, discover a tomb. The trio then say, "This must be the biggest discovery since Tutankhamun 10 years ago, and if we have just discovered another pharaoh, think of the publicity we could get," said one of the brothers. "Gentlemen, should we find out who or what it is at first?" said Helen. "Of course. So this tomb, given its riches, it must have been someone of great importance or someone really bad," said Joseph. "No," said Frank. "We will look upon this tomb. Let us open it." "Should we?" "Yes. I mean, whatever's in there has been dead for over 3,000 years. Surely there'll be nothing to kill us. But of course, if you know the legends and the myths of this, of course, myths and legends, it's all a bunch of hullabaloo to keep the suspicious ones away. Yes, but look at the locals that we've paid to take us here and to help us dig. They would go nowhere near this tomb, believing it's cursed," said Joseph. "Of course, Frank. Look, let's just get our crowbar and open." Frank and Joseph then get their crowbars, telling Helen to take a step back. They then manage to nudge the top of it open, where they then find a decayed mummy, wondering who it could be. Looking upon the hieroglyphs, Frank asks Helen. You say you studied Egyptian? Yes. Could you translate this? Let's see. Very roughly, and this is just a rough translation, this person's name was called Akiten. Akiten? Wait, do you mean, said Frank, yes, my brother. This could be proof of the infamous pharaoh prince that never was, Akiten. Oh, well done. Come, we'll get someone to take this out in the morning or something. Then, as they go back to the main digging, they then go past another tomb. They go, who could this be? I don't know. Someone that is not so important. There's no gold in here. Yes. Still, it'd be interesting to see the corpse. Oh, Joseph, don't be so morbid. Oh, come on. There's no harm in looking. They then open the tomb, where they find another mummy, decayed and rotted. They then say, well, this is just pretty much a similar mummy to the one we have found. Wait, said Helen, look, markings on this. Markings? Yes, on the inside of the tomb. This man was buried alive. Well, who is he? I don't know. But look. As they look in the tomb, they find a book. They then pick up the old relic, thinking, this must be a great ancient book. Oh, gentlemen, I think we've found some good treasures today. A cause for celebration. Back at the camp, they open a bottle of wine and celebrate. As they do, a man arrives in a white three-piece suit and a white trilby hat. As they toast to their discovery, the man walks in and says, am I interrupting? I'm sorry, who are you? Oh, yes, forgive me, said the man. My name is Professor Carl Friend. I work for an organization of, well, top secrets. I hear that you have been digging here for some time. Yes, Hominoptera, the city of the dead. It's greatly fascinated us, said Helen. Yes, well, let's hope that it lives up to its name and remains that way. I believe you found a book and the tomb of Akiten? I'm sorry, how do you know of this? News travels fast, especially with the locals and their superstition. Sorry, who did you say you work with again? It's, need to know. Anyway, I would like to stay here and observe, not collect any royalties or credit or anything of that, but just to make sure, well, my employers, they are very superstitious too, as they should be. But please, don't mind me. I wish to just observe. I'm sorry, said Frank, but what did you say you're a professor of? Just a professor. Like I said, don't mind me. later, as the night comes in, when everyone is asleep, Helen looks at the book. Then Joseph wakes up saying, "So what are you doing? This book is fascinating. I mean, why would this be buried in a tomb with someone that had no treasures in it?" "Well, I don't know, but it looked like he was guarding it or someone threw it in there with him." "They must have done," said Helen. "Can you make out what it says?" "No. Must take it back to the museum where I can observe and analyze it better." "Of course." A few days later, when all the artifacts are taken to the local museum of Cairo, Helen studies the book with gold and paper, thinking, what is this? Then she hears a noise. She calls out, asking if anyone's there. No one responds. She walks around to investigate. As she does, she observes the open tomb of Akhenaten, a pharaoh, laying in his tomb. Also going past the unnamed tomb with the other mummy inside. Then, as she heads back to her office, she is then startled by Carl, Professor Carl Friend. He then says, "Oh, do forgive me, Miss Grossner. What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm just browsing around the museum. The museum closed 5 hours ago." "Tell me, who are you? Why are you here?" "Like I said, my employers don't wish... well, they wish to remain anonymous." "Anyway, good evening, miss. You know, you do remind me of someone I looked up on a history book once. An old princess, maybe?" "I don't know what you mean." "You say your family's from Egypt?" "I'm half Egyptian from my mother's side. My father was an archaeologist here, and that's where he met her." "Interesting. Well, as I say, good evening." Then, the next morning, Helen speaks with the brothers, Joseph and Frank, saying, "That man is strange, and I fear that he's onto something. By the way, did you read the book? I'm getting close to translating it. Something to do with necromancy. You see, in the ancient times, when someone was being punished, they would laid a curse upon them. Or maybe those who were maybe being wrongly accused, they would lay a curse. Now, if I'm right, according to the legend, Akhenaten was a prince of Egypt, always wanting to be the pharaoh. He had a younger sister who was in a romantic relationship with his father's high priest and advisor, and apparently his father did not see Akhenaten as a worthy successor, asking if his priest and advisor Imhotep would take over." "Imhotep?" "Yes, that's what I managed to translate on the marked tomb. Just his name. Now, I believe that Akhenaten murdered his father and framed Imhotep for this, and as part of a punishment, well, Akiten promised him his life if he would read from the book, granting him powers. Now, according to this, he did so by doing a blood ritual, connecting him and Akiten together, and if anything should happen, Akiten would also experience. Now, believing this, Akiten had the priest Imhotep executed before his sister, who was Imhotep's lover, and, well, let's just say, because they were connected by blood due to the spell Imhotep made, which he took out as an insurance policy, they suffered the same fate and were buried in Hamunaptra. So, where is this book now? Oh, it's in my office at the museum. I will take you there later, tonight after the museum closes. We could maybe try and read from it. Are you sure? Said Joseph. Oh, come along now, said Frank. There is nothing to worry about. We don't believe this curse mumbo-jumbo. Overhearing them at a local restaurant as they talk, Professor Carl hears them and finds that he must stop them. Later on in the museum, after it closes, Helen then reads the book. She then says, let's see, this says Amunakauma, as she reads the text in ancient Egyptian, repeating the phrase over and over again. Then, in the tomb of Akiten, which is slightly open, a hand jumps out of the tomb, moving the door to one side. Then, out of the darkness, Carl runs out shouting, "No! You must not read from the book." "Why?" "You don't know what you've done. You could have set off a chain reaction that could have brought upon the apocalypse. I'm sorry, but I'm taking this book." "You can't just take this book, it's ours." "If I read my history correctly, you could have summoned a curse that has been dormant for 3,000 years. Okay, that's enough. You need to tell us who you are, where you're from, and what your employers are." "Look, I'm not in liberty to discuss it," said Carl. Then, as he was about to leave the office, Joseph then closes the door and locks it, saying, "You are going to tell us everything that you're not telling us now." "Very well." Carl then sits down and tells them, "My name is Professor Carl Friend, and I did an expedition many years ago." "We don't want your full backstory. It's important that it comes into this. I was doing a expedition in Mexico a few years ago, where I stumbled across an Aztec ruin. Now, I summoned something, and I had to unsummon it, which I did do, successfully, by the way, because I did my research, but I thought if anyone was to know of my experience, they would think I'm mad. But there was one group of people, that believed me. They said that they were impressed with my knowledge of myths and curses." "Hang on, you're saying," said Frank, "that You summoned an evil Aztec spirit, then you put it back in the jar. That's exactly what I'm saying. And how are we to believe you? Just get to the point. Tell us. I work for a secret organization called the Foundation, whose job is to create the illusion that man is alone because man does not understand what is not natural. Then the three of them laugh at him, mocking him, saying, "Oh, goodness me," said Helen. "Why? What is it with you and your curses?" "I can assure you, man is not alone, and that is why you need to believe that you are alone in this world, because you think that everything is ridiculous. Myths and monsters." "Oh, come on now," said Frank. "There's no such thing as monsters." Meanwhile, in the museum, a nighttime guard walks around and then hears a noise. Calling out to it, he asks, "Who is there?" Looking around, he sees nothing until he hears someone or something behind him. He then turns around, and then a scream is heard in the office. They then unlock the door and go out to investigate. They then walk up to the security guard as he has his back to them, saying, "Are you all right?" Said Frank, "Hello?" The guard then turns around with his eyes and tongue removed, collapsing to the ground. That is when they see a mummy-like creature before it dusts away into sand. Joseph then says, "What the fuck?" Now, calm down, brother. I'm sure there's a logical explanation for all this." Helen then says, "If I'm looking at this situation correctly, an ancient Egyptian mummy has just woken up and took the security guard's eyes and tongue before killing them." Then Professor Collins says, "It seems that the curses are real." "Oh, no, come on, this is some sick joke," said Frank. "No, it isn't, I can assure you. You have awoken something evil, and we must stop it before it is too late. Come, I'm staying at a hotel room. I'll use a nearby phone, and I will come clean about everything. But then, when all this is over, well, we'll deal with that when we come to it, won't we? Come, to the hotel. Wait, we can't just leave this body here. Alert the authorities and let's go." "I'm really sorry," said Joseph. Then Carl then says, "Look, I have a few assistants who came with me here to Egypt. They will deal with this mess. They're outside and I can tell them to go in. Now come on." As they then leave the museum, Carl then summons his assistants, saying, "There's a body in there that has had its eyes and tongue removed. I want you to clean the scene and create an illusion, make it look like this person's still alive, and come up with some cock and bull story later." They then get into a car, and they say, "Wait, how do we know where you're taking us? If you do not feel comfortable traveling with me, then I insist you follow. Now let's go, and I will show you everything of what I know and done about this case." They then get into the car and drive. Meanwhile, in the other tomb, the tomb of Imhotep, a hand then reaches out and moves, staggering out of the tomb, with eyes and tongue appearing in the mouth and eye sockets, as they had a blood bond connection. Imhotep then staggers outside of the museum, where the moonlight shines upon him as he looks upon it for the first time in over 3,000 years.